bienvenidos to Pica Poco Kitchen. Today we're making bows. Vámonos! Bows, or moños, are one of the many pastries that you can find in a baking store in Mexico. Like many other pieces, it has a European background, but through time it has established itself as one of the staples of any panaderia. They are a Danish pastry, which means that it's a sweet yeast-raised dough. They can be laminated or non-laminated, also known as Viennese pastries. Maybe trickier to make. They have a high content in fats because some of them have eggs and they all have butter, and the fat will make it a little bit trickier to work. However, I don't want you to feel discouraged. If you had made easier doughs, this is the next step you have to take in order to start making brioche and Danish pastries and croissants later on. Another thing that I can recommend is watch the recipe, read the recipe many times, have your ingredients ready, weight everything, set and clear your area, have time, don't do it in a rush, be patient, not just with the time because it requires waiting times, also with yourself. Do it when you are in the mood to do it, and you will see that with time you'll get better. But if you don't try the first time, there's not gonna be any practice. So I just want you to know that, just in case you haven't baked anything before, and you want to jump right into, why not? Just take account of these steps, follow the recipe, weigh your ingredients, and you're gonna be fine. And maybe the first time it's not gonna turn out as great, but don't you worry, keep trying, or maybe it will, and you will discover a new passion and you will explore other kinds of baking goods that you can make. But don't you worry, my version of the bow is a simplified Danish pastry. So I think that you will find it a little bit easier to make. And of course, don't you worry, if my recipe doesn't work for you, there are many other recipes out there that you can find, but I just want you to give it a try because it's worth it. I was afraid in the beginning as well when I started baking, but now I feel more confident and I've realized that if you don't try, you'll never get there. But with all that said, let's close Pride Month with a luxurious, elegant, and beautiful bow. Let's go. I'm gonna start with 250 grams of flour, and this time I'm gonna work in my table throughout. So I'm gonna dump my flour in it and make a little well. And yes, in the beginning it's gonna look crazy because I'm gonna dump everything at once, but trust me, it's gonna work out. So I have here 75 mils of milk that I slightly warm in the microwave just for 40 seconds. And I'm also gonna break in my egg. And of course, this is not wise. You should always crack open your egg in a little bowl and then add it to everything. But I'm a risk taker sometimes. Then you can use between 10 to 15 grams of yeast, dump it right in, and also the sugar, which in this case are 55 grams. I will also add a pinch of salt, and don't worry too much about it, it's gonna be okay. And optional, I'm gonna add just a little bit of vanilla. In this case, it's just half a teaspoon, and you can switch it for any other flavor or just leave it out. And using my favorite whisk for dough making, I'm using my Dutch whisk, which I find super useful, and it is commonly used when working with Danish doughs. I'm trying just to break down the egg, integrate all the liquids with the yeast and the sugar before starting to slowly add the flour from the surrounding walls. I'm gonna make sure that everything is combined, and then I'm gonna add my butter, which at this point it is super duper room temp. I do have to tell you that it is quite warm in here. As you can see, it just breaks apart so easily. These are 55 grams of butter. This is just one part of the butter. The rest of the butter we're gonna add later. What I'm trying to achieve here is to integrate the butter, the liquids, and some of the flour into making it more manageable, meaning that I am going to try as much flour into the liquids until a point that I feel more comfortable working it with my hands. That's why the whisks comes very, very handy at this point. So work slowly, try not to break the walls of your well so you don't have a splatter and everything goes everywhere. And once I'm comfortable with where my dough is going, I'm trying to look for a shaggy dough where everything is just pulling and sticking together, then I'm gonna move on to work with my hands. And this is another reason why I love this whisk, because as you can see, it's super easy to clean. Now that I'm comfortable with what I've got, I'm just gonna finish integrating all the flour into my dough. Just make sure to dough it well. At this point, we're just trying to integrate, nothing else. So you don't have to be very strict on the movements that you use. And of course, as always, you can use your mixer if you feel more comfortable using that and doughing there. Just use your dough attachment and you will be fine. Which whatever tools that help you the most. And that's the whole point about practicing, that you will discover which tools work the best for you and which ones don't. If you're using your mixer, then don't over knead your dough. When working with Danish pastries, you don't have to do an intense kneading since the gluten will continue developing during the lamination process. So just knead your dough until it's well combined, it has a smooth surface, and you can shape it. And now we're just gonna ball our dough, cover it up, and let it rest for 45 minutes. This will help it relax, and we're gonna be ready to move on to the second part. Now I'm back with my rolling pin and room temperature butter. I have 28 grams of it. I'm gonna punch my dough and shape it into a rectangle. The rolling in procedure has two main factors. One, to enclose the fat, in this case the butter, and to do the foldings to achieve a flakiness in your final dough. So using my pin, I'm gonna elongate my dough into some sort of a rectangle. I committed the mistake of trying to use my hands and that just me shaping the dough, so don't do that, but in the end it didn't really matter. Once you have the shape you want, using your hands, you're gonna spread the butter all over the dough. And I don't know why, but I love doing this. I find it so satisfying. Maybe I'm crazy. And now we're gonna proceed to do the foldings. We're gonna do a three-way, meaning that we're gonna fold our dough in 3/3, just like that. Once you get there, you're gonna turn your dough the other way and repeat this process at least 3 times. I told you that my version was a simplified version of the lamination and the whole process. So normally what you would do is do one turn, and turn is referred to each folding and rolling of your dough, and put your dough in the fridge for 30 minutes. Then take it out, do it again, wait 30 minutes, and so on and so forth. But, I mean, yes, I'm patient, but not that patient. So, help yourself to use my simplified version if that works for you too. Once I'm in my last stage, now I'm gonna cover my dough in plastic and let it sit in the fridge for at least 15 minutes. If your house is super warm, then maybe even let it rest in the freezer. And after my dough comes out of the fridge, I'm gonna give it one last rolling before cutting and shaping. By putting it on the fridge, it will help the gluten to relax, allowing us to cut it and shape it without the dough shrinking. Now I'm gonna trim the edges of my dough just to give it a sharper look. And don't worry, those two little pieces will be a nice snack for myself later. Obviously, I'm gonna bake it. I didn't mean to say that I was gonna eat raw dough, even though I'm tempted sometimes. Don't eat raw dough. Anyway, once I've decided what size I want my bows, I figure out that probably I'll get 5. I really wanted to get 6, but 5 will do. Using my pizza cutter, I'm going straight, using also my fingers as a measurement. You know, me and measurements, me and numbers in general, we're just not good friends. However, it turned out quite nice. So now that I have my rectangles, the shaping is due. And so our bows look like so. You're gonna take one of your rectangles, rest it on one of your hands, and your dominant hand will twist 2 times the top, just like that. Once more, rest it in one hand, the other hand twists twice. And once I have them all, I'm gonna place them in my tray. Remember not to overcrowd your trays, and press the ends with your fingers to give them a better shape. Once you have them all ready, cover them, let them sit for 40 more minutes, and then we're gonna bake them. I baked mine at 350 for 20 minutes, but they ended up coming out too golden for my liking, so I would recommend baking them at 310 between 20 to 30 minutes. Once they're out, bake them with a little bit of melted butter, and then they're ready for a nice shower of sugar. Now allow them to fully cool down, and they're ready to be enjoyed. And here they are, wonderful and delicious. I can tell you already they're not gonna last long. And your bow that you can wear however you want, but most importantly that you can eat it. Now, I will normally, or when I was little, I would dunk it in a glass of cold milk, but now that I'm older and I can't drink milk, I don't feel like dunking it in, coconut milk or any other milk. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me. But also you can dunk it in your coffee or in your atole or whatever, but it's too hot. It's 100 degrees out, so I didn't feel like doing that. But don't you worry, because they're perfect on their own. You can see the flakiness. You don't need to dunk them. And maybe you hate dunking. I don't know. Let me know. Are you a dunker? Dunker? Is that a word? It sounds awful. Anyway, look at these flakes. Look at this softness, pillowy goodness. They are buttery without being oily, which I like, that the amount of butter is not as high. That also helps making it easier to work. But, I mean, what is not to like? And if you make them, be proud. Wear your bows in your hair or around your neck. Just be you. I hope you had a very happy Pride Month, and I hope you enjoyed the recipe. And if you did, please share it with your friends, just like this video. Like, subscribe, and be notified. And for more, follow me on the socials. Adios, amigos.